Hi, I'm Nicholas Seminario, founder of Dark Angel Company. This podcast is to share the untold stories of just a few of the many people battling mental illnesses in this world. If you're in need of a little inspiration to keep fighting or to feel less alone in your battle, keep listening and share to spread awareness. This is the Dark Angel Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Dark Angel Podcast. It is me and Max again, and today we're going to be talking about something super important, and I think a lot of people struggle with this. A lot of people struggle to find purpose in their life and what they really want to do in their life, right? So today we're going to be talking about what you want to do for the rest of your life and
how to figure it out.
Yes, exactly, right? Like how to make sure you're not putting these incorrect stresses on yourself, especially at a young age, like high school, college, right? We put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and myself included. You know, I've gone through so many different things where I've wanted to be this, I wanted to do that, and I was like, you know, is that going to make me happy, or is success what I'm chasing, right? I want to weigh out kind of all these options and all these differences between, you know, success, happiness, failure, right? And what we really want to do with our lives. Sometimes you need to do a little bit of soul searching. What's something that you have, you know, struggled with, you know, in finding what you want to do for your life? You know, whether it was take that super successful route or take that happiness route.
I think that you can have both in a sense, but I think it comes through, like I'm still trying to figure it out myself. I'm not necessarily set on one thing. And I think that the idea of picking one thing to do for the rest of your life almost isn't the greatest expectation to place on kids at all, because you might want to do something, say you do it for 10 years, right? You really liked it. Then you just stopped wanting to do it. You know, you might not have found that same enjoyment. It's completely okay to switch, you know what I mean? Or have some kind of balance between doing multiple things. And I just think that it takes time and really, like, there needs to be a deeper purpose behind what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, you need to have a reason that you're doing it, right? That isn't just, I want to wake up and make money. Because that, at least from my personal experience, that approach doesn't really work.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, my issue with it is, you know, at such a young age, you kind of have to decide, I want to go into this, right? Especially if you're in high school or college, right? When you're deciding to first go to a college, if you decide to go to college, you know, you're deciding, okay, what major do I want to go into, right? What path am I going to take to continue my life and then, you know, work and be in that environment my whole life, right? Then once you're in college, you have to decide whether or not you like that major. And it's a short time, right? You're there for, on average, 4 years. You know, most people, unless you're going for a graduate program or master's, whatever it is, you're only there for 4 years, right? So it's like you're 18 when you're starting for most of us, and now you're done by 22, and then your real life starts. And it's like, am I sure I wanted to be in, you know, marketing? Am I sure I wanted to be in finance? It's like you're so young, and it's so hard to really tell, like, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? And, you know, it's like we've been in this little bubble structured for the past 14 years, right? You know, give or take, how our life should be, right? You go to school, and it's similar to then going and getting a job. You know, you're there all day long. And it's like, is this what I really want to do? You know, sometimes you have to take out the happiness, and people would rather be comfortable, right? You're wanting to go get a job so you could support your family, but that doesn't make everybody happy. And it's very hard to find out what happiness is at our age, right? It's like, truthfully, I don't know what I want to do. I have paths and ideas I'd like to go down and go explore, but it's like, I don't want to be tied to one thing. How do you feel with that? Is there different paths you want to take, or is it really just one thing you're kind of going for?
It's one thing I'm going for as the end goal, but the way I'm getting there and like the things I'm doing it through are different, if that makes sense. Like I have that one purpose that kind of pushes everything for me, but I have multiple ways of kind of going after that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And, you know, it's like, do you picture yourself getting into something and then 40 years from now still doing that same thing?
Maybe. I think it all depends, on how much you really enjoy it. And I think that's why finding something that you enjoy is so important, because ultimately, in order to get good at it, no matter what it is, it's not going to happen in a year. You may get better, but you're not going to be very, very good at what you do in a short amount of time. So you have to be willing to commit a long period of time to it, right? Or at least enough time to figure out, okay, I don't want to do this.
Yeah. Yes.
But you have to be willing to commit some great amount of time to it. And if you don't do that, and it's harder to do that if you don't enjoy it.
Yeah. And another thing, I notice, and I talk to a lot of kids about this, even in school with me. They're like, oh, I'm in this major and it's kind of too late to change. It's like I'm stuck in it.
It's not, though.
Exactly. And 50 to 75% of all undergraduate students change their major at least one time before earning a degree. That's more than half, right? 3/4 of the people in college are going to change their degree, right? So for those of you who feel like you're stuck in something, you're not. Yeah, it may take an extra semester or two to graduate, but it's that extra 4 months for an extra 40 years of happiness, right? You kind of have to look at it like that. And I'm an example of that. I started out double majoring in engineering and computer science. So I was in a completely different track than what I am in now. I had 7 classes my first semester. It was 5 regular classes, 2 labs. I was there way too long every day. I had Tuesdays and Thursdays. I was there until 6 o'clock, or Thursdays I was there until 8. Monday, Wednesday I was there until 5. Like, I was there literally all day long, and I got there at 8 a.m. I had 8 a.m.s all throughout the week. So it's like I was so involved in it, and I had no choice but to do it, right? Like, I wasn't going to let my grades sacrifice. Then I wound up pursuing this, and I kind of had to make that decision. I was like, am I going to stick with engineering, or am I going to kind of do what makes me happy? I didn't know what to do, and I was kind of torn. I was like, do I really want to stay in engineering and, be in that rat race and just make, a set salary, or do I want to go and pursue this and spread a positive message and make other people happy, feel welcomed? So I went with the second option, and I'm so happy I did. I'm still in school. I'm studying finance, which I do enjoy, but I couldn't see myself still doing what I did, my first semester. And don't get me wrong, I did enjoy engineering. I wasn't a huge fan of computer science. I felt like there was a cap on it, and I couldn't go through or better than that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So even in like a bunch of my friends from engineering, they even said to me, they're like, oh, I hate it, but whatever, I'm already 2 semesters in, like it's too late now. And it's like, those people are going to, hopefully not, but it's possible they're going to be miserable, right? Like, they're doing something they don't enjoy. And that's so difficult to deal with for the rest of your life. Like, you kind of have to plan ahead and think, like, am I doing myself a disservice by going against and going, the opposite of what my happiness is? Also, 39% of students graduate from college and pursue a completely different career path that does not use their degree at all. They decide they want to do something else, which is fine, right? Like, those people, instead of letting it get to them, they said, no, I want to be happy and I'm going to do something I do enjoy. And that's kind of what we're trying to stress. Like, you're not stuck, right?
Yeah.
One of my dad's best friends, an amazing dude. We all love him. He's a very smart guy. Very, very smart. He's just very technologically advanced. He knows a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff, pretty much. He had a job. He was making good money. And at 40 years old or 45 years old, he was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So he left. He did something else. And he makes good money, too. So he's doing what he loves. And then now recently he's doing something else. Like, he doesn't let the fear of everybody else's perceptions and all these ties that are, like these chains that are tying us down. he doesn't let that affect him, right? He just kind of does what makes him happy. He wants to try something new. He does it. He gets bored with something, he'll go and try something new. And that's something I look at and I'm like, that's amazing. Like, you're 45, 50 years old and you're not letting, these chains kind of say, no, you can't go and do this. You can't go and do that, right? So it's pretty amazing in my eyes, right? I think that's such an amazing quality to have because it's not something that's super easy and, just very digestible, right? You're an adult. You got to support a family. And it's like, that's scary.
Well, that's where, if you take the time when you're a little bit younger to try out all these new things and build up these skills in different areas, you can do things like that,
Yeah.
Because if you don't have any other skills other than that one job or that one degree, you are stuck.
Yes.
It's a lot harder to figure out something else.
Yeah. And he, he went to school. He did finance for his undergraduate. He went to law school. I think he got his MBA also. So he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
He's got his stuff together, so he could pretty much do anything, but he decides to do what makes him happy. And I think the main point for this is just to kind of normalize not knowing what you want to do, right? You can change your mind along the way. Don't be stuck or confined to one thing. If you start realizing it's not making you happy anymore, change it, right? The next thing I want to get into is feeling lost after college. And I find this is something hard for a lot of people as well. I'm still in college, so I don't know what this is like, but I have plenty of people around me where A, either they dropped out or B, they just graduated and they're like, I don't know what I want to do. So I want to talk about that. Is there any situations where you've seen that, because I know you were going to school and then you stopped, right? And now you're going back to school.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd be going back. So that was definitely a little weird, but I think, like, when I stopped for that year, it was nice because I got that idea or that sense of, like, I can really do whatever I want. And that was nice. And I think that feeling or that experience really made a big difference on me to now, because I don't feel like I'm necessarily stuck with doing just one thing. I can do multiple things at once. I think that's important, at least for right now, because I'm not necessarily set on what I want to do, and I don't think I ever will be set. I just think I'll have things that I enjoy doing for however long that may be. But it was hard because I spent a lot of time not really doing anything, trying to figure out what exactly I should be doing, and I had those feelings of, am I doing enough? I woke up every day. Sometimes I'd be stressed that I wasn't doing quote unquote enough, right? Or I wasn't moving in the right direction. And I think those days are important because you have to give ideas and those feelings a chance to kind of sit with you, because that's the only way you ever really figure out what you want, right? You were talking about doing soul searching. You call it what you want, right? But it's that in another form, where you're sitting there and you're just figuring it out. And it's not going to come overnight. It's going to take time to figure out exactly what interests you, right? And what makes you want to commit, a certain amount of time and oftentimes a lot of money into certain things.
So during this time, did you have a hard time finding a purpose? Like, were you looking at yourself almost as a failure? Like, did you, because I've had times where I'm looking for a purpose, and I think I found my purpose, right? I think doing this is my purpose, right? Through this, did you have a hard time finding a purpose? And was this something you were looking for?
No, my purpose has always been clear to me in some sense. I just want to be able to provide for a family. I want to have kids, and I want to be able to live a life where no one kind of tells me what to do, right? I can live exactly how I choose to, right? Having a purpose is important because it drives everything, but that purpose can't be tied to the goals, if that makes sense. Like, your purpose has to be independent of what those goals are, and the goals have to serve the purpose, not the purpose serving the goals.
Can you give us an example?
I have a company, essentially, that I'm trying to start right now, and the idea behind the company isn't necessarily to make money, but improve a problem that I've noticed in my life, and it's something that I would use. And I'm not doing it for the money, right? And if I make money, that would be awesome. But I would just like to see this succeed because it would better my life, right? And it would better my family's life and my friends' lives and their families' lives. And that's why I'm doing that, because it's serving that ultimate goal of providing for my family, for me.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Perfect. So that's that's a really good way to paint that picture. And for you, I would say that is a good purpose for you, right? So your purpose, you're fulfilling your purpose, and what you want to do for the rest of your life is helping people, right? You want to provide necessities for people and make things easier for people. So that's exactly like, I like how you said you don't want to have them together. You want to kind of have them independent of each other, because yes, like I have goals for my company, but they're kind of independent of my purpose of my company, right? Some things can intertwine, but it's like for the most part, yeah, like my goal is to have this be successful and reach a lot of people, and my purpose is to help people and change lives.
Yeah. The way I think about it is the goals are kind of like the measuring sticks, and the purpose is what gets you up every day.
Okay.
Yeah,
I really, really like that. I want to ask you this. So normally there's a thing, it's called post-graduation depression, and it happens when students graduate college, right? So you're leaving your student days behind, you're beginning a new chapter, and this chapter is going to come with a lot of change. Everything they've known for the past 4 years, it's gone, right? Not necessarily gone, but it's in the past
more
now.
than the past 4 years, since you've started going to school at 5.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're really starting over, right? You're starting a new life, and a lot of people tend to get depressed when they start this. When you dropped out of school, did you feel that? Did you feel that sense of like, what am I doing with my life? Like all these people, they're going to school, they're doing this, like.
I understand what you're asking. Yeah, I still feel that to some sense. It's like a little bit of, I guess you call it anxiety, right? Of like keeping up.
Okay.
With quote unquote keeping up with everyone else, right? I definitely did experience that when I first dropped out a little bit, but I definitely also was excited because I understood the feeling of no one is finally telling me what to do when I get up anymore. I really enjoy getting up and doing what I'm doing every day, even though it might not be what I do and it might not provide for my ultimate purpose. I was still enjoying that freedom. And the issue with, I think, where the post-graduation depression comes from, I think it's a combination of realizing that you got that one degree, whatever it may be, or you got those couple degrees, and you kind of have an idea of how the next 40 years of your life are going to be. And I think part of excitement is not knowing what's going to happen. And once you graduate, at least graduate or drop out, whatever, there may only be one or two paths you can really picture, and that can put you in a bad spot.
Did you ever experience that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I dropped out, and then what I was doing kind of stopped. I fell apart, whatever. And then, you kind of freak out a little bit,
Totally. And I understand that.
Yeah. Like, I think it's necessary, though. Just like, when you start to worry about what you're going to do for the rest of your life. Sure, it doesn't feel good, but that feeling is kind of necessary towards figuring it out.
Yeah.
Because that's what's driving you to figure it out. You don't want to feel like that. So I think, yes, the post-graduation depression is real, and it's not easy. But the way, at least I've been able to counter those feelings or those doubts, for me at least, is you have to mentally kind of reframe it, right? And then don't be afraid to go out there and like create something. Go try something. If it doesn't work, nothing happened. You're still at the same point in your life, except you have a little bit more experience under your belt. And that experience may not pay off right now, but you never know what situations you're in later on, too, where, you're talking about your dad's friend. He did all these things. I'm sure he had no idea how they were going to work together.
Yeah.
Right?
No, exactly.
And I'm sure he might not even be using some of those skills right now, even anymore.
He's not.
Into his 50s.
Yeah. He doesn't do anything with his law degree.
Exactly. So he did things, and I'm sure the law degree helped him for a little while, but now he's on to something else. And that something else might not have been something that he did for 10 years' time. Or something that he really thought about.
Yeah, exactly. And through this time, did you notice like a lack of confidence in your abilities? Did you lack, this feeling of being you?
Yeah. I mean, yet That's a tough question because I think that answer, sure, in the moment, but you grow through those moments so that you that was before isn't the you that kind of, when like it all is said and done in that situation, at least you have different experiences, different emotions that you might have went through, social situations, that were uncomfortable maybe, which is a big one when you're in a new environment or a new time in your life, right? Is you don't know how to approach certain things socially sometimes, right?
It's very interesting to me also because one of my friends, he's not in school right now. He runs a business. He's doing very well, but sometimes he even says, he's like, should I just be in school? It's like, it's such a norm where it's like there's so much pressure around it. If you're not in school, it's like, what are you doing? And it's tough, right? It's like, even my brother, right? He's not in school anymore. He's working with my dad. So now he's in plumbing, right? He's in a trade. And there's plenty of people who will look down on that and they're like, oh, he's not in school? Like, no, he doesn't like school. School's not for him, right? Like, he's doing something that makes him happy. He loves plumbing. He enjoys the crews. He's like, he's doing great. He loves it. So it's like, that's important. And look, he wants to do that, right? So he's going to be happy. He's going to be happy doing that for the rest of his life. Also, another thing I feel like you do is writing out your goals, passions, and values. This is kind of a way to counteract these postgraduate blues, I like to call them. This is a way to counteract that, right? I feel like you're somebody who writes these things down. Is that true?
I think it's important to know where you want to go, but I think it's also important not to get too stuck focusing on the goals. Like, be willing to let other things happen. Don't fill up every single day with as much work as you can in one area.
And kind of take the time to find out what you really want to do.
Yeah, like, don't be afraid to spend, take a semester off. Do whatever you want. Ultimately, it's important to make sure that you have the means to do that, right? So if you need to work a job, you work a job, right? Not everything is going to be perfect.
No.
But be willing to kind of just put things on hold for a little bit and do something different. It doesn't have to be like, you don't have to do everything the way that everyone tells you to do it.
Well, like, even you're a perfect example. When you went down to Florida, you did something very different, right? Like, you got out of your comfort zone. You did something that was very different, and you saw it wasn't for you. So it's like, that's important. But now you have that under your belt, and now you can say, okay, I can take this to the next part of my life, and I know that's not for me, right? It's something you're not going to figure out if you like or dislike something unless you try it. Like, that's the reality of things. You kind of have to go into it, dive into it, try it, and then you're really going to be able to figure out what you like or dislike. So the next thing I want to talk about is, are you going to make a career or have a career for money or happiness? And can you do both? This is a tricky question, right? We've all been told work is for money, right? And hobbies are for passions, but that sounds pretty miserable, right? It's like, is that all they're good for? Is work just good for money, and are hobbies just for passions, right? Or can you marry those two, and can your hobbies be your work that make you money and that you're passionate about?
Yeah, I think they can. I mean, you're more likely to be good at something you enjoy, right?
Yeah, totally.
So if you're more likely to be good at something you enjoy, why not try and turn that into something that makes you money? And you never know how many other people out there will like what you create or do, and at least this is the way I think most people view it. I'm going to get this job to start, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go here, and then ultimately when I'm in my 40s or 50s, maybe I'll be able to do this, right? And there's nothing wrong with that path by any means, because a lot of people's goals are just to provide, have a family, and enjoy a good, comfortable life. When you're younger, it can be hard to just kind of picture that and be like, okay, I'm going to do that, because I've been alive for 20 years. It feels like an eternity, right? But another 20 years are going to go by. A lot's going to happen, but at the end of the day, you're still going to have some of the same responsibilities, but you're also going to have a lot different of situations, and also with that time passing comes problems and things you have to change and fix with relationships and life. And I think that's why it's important to do what you enjoy. And at least that's how I feel about it. The money can always come second, There's always going to be a job out there for you to make money if you need extra money, And if you really enjoy what you do, there's a better chance you're going to take it farther, pursue it a little bit farther, and then end up making more money as a result.
Yeah. And now, do you think you're more money-driven or happiness-driven? What would you say?
Right now, I'm more focused on money, but I'm more driven by the freedom, the happiness I'd get from the freedom of having a lot of money.
Okay, so you definitely feel money buys happiness.
Money buys it's indirect. I don't think having a lot of money, like you can have a lot of money, right?
And be miserable.
Yeah. Or you can have a lot of money and have to spend a lot of money to keep up with everything every month. And that's stressful, right? Because you can't really ever stop working. I want the freedom to kind of stop working and spend time with family and friends eventually, maybe within the next 20 years. That would be nice.
Okay, so you're both then, I guess. I would say for myself, growing up, I was always super money driven, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm someone who's still money driven. And, ever since I was a little kid, I always wanted a huge house. I wanted nice cars. I wanted nice things. And as I got older, not that I don't still want those things, because I do want to have a nice lifestyle. I want to be able to, like you said, just appreciate all the time with my friends, family. And look, you could do that anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a nice house with a nice car. I rather, like you said, you're kind of buying your freedom.
Yeah.
When you have a lot of money, that's your freedom.
You have more opportunity.
Exactly, and that's kind of how I look at it. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that happiness is what's more important. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to put aside the money factor because, like I said, I do like money. I like making money. I like giving people money, right? Like I like spreading money, right? I feel like whatever you dish out, you're going to get in return. It's just good karma. But happiness is also extremely important as well. And if you let the fact of money kind of overtake that, I think sometimes that can be an issue. I don't know how you feel with that. I know, like you said, you kind
money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
It's just how it is.
So it causes a lot of problems.
It does. But
whether you have it or you don't.
It's the same with anything. It matters who is in control of it.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the instrument. It has everything to do with like who's in control of it,
I've always been super money driven as a kid, and that's something that's kind of hard to take out of you, right?
Yeah, I think everyone is, though, to some degree, right? Everyone kind of looks at the fast car, the big house, and is like, oh, I want that for myself. Most people would say that they do want that stuff.
And my uncle, he's a perfect example. He's someone who's not impressed by money. He lives probably one of the most amazing lifestyles. Like, he travels whenever he wants. He doesn't live like super lavishly. He's not a materialistic person, but he enjoys himself, right? They go on trips to Europe. They go wherever. They go to India, China, wherever it is. Like, they're just all over. And he lives his best life, right? Like, he's doing what makes him happy. And he doesn't look at money as happiness, right? Like he runs a very successful business, and I've had this conversation with him. He's like, if I wanted to really hammer it, he's like, I could. He's like, I could really make a lot of money with it. He's like, but for what? He's like, I don't need it. He's like, I'm fine with where I am. I'm making enough money. I'm able to travel. I'm able to go away whenever I want. So he's like, what more do I need? He's like, that at that point, it's just being greedy.
Yeah.
So he lives kind of like that perfect lifestyle. And don't get me wrong, if he had no money, he wouldn't be able to do that, right? So, of course, you're going to need some money, but how much is enough, right? That's kind of like the big question.
Yeah, and I think it's different for every person. I think it comes back down to their purpose, At the end of the day, if your goal is to provide for your family, how many people do you need to provide for? And what do you want that to look like,
Yeah, and we've had this conversation. I plan on having him on the podcast one day too. He's a very philosophical person, and he likes to be deep, and I love this about him. We always have these deep conversations. We'll go on for hours. And, he's asked me before, because I was telling him, like, oh, I want this kind of house. I want it to be this big. I want, this, that, and the other thing. And he goes, why? And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean why? Like, who doesn't want a nice house? Who doesn't want a nice car? He's like, no, what inside of you makes you want that, right? He's like, is it, the other people around you saying, oh, wow, he's successful, he's able to do this? Or is it other people saying, oh, I wish I had that? Or is it for you, for your ego, right? Or is it something that is just, at the bottom of the line, that's just what makes you happy? He's like, what is the reasoning for it? He's like, it doesn't excite me. And he's like, I'm not saying it can't excite you, right? He's like, but I'm just curious, why? And I sat there for a good 10 minutes and I was like, shit, I don't know.
Yeah.
I was like, I have to think about this. So I sat with that and thought about it for about 2.5, 3 weeks. And, we see each other pretty much once a week. So every week, I just kept telling him, I'm like, I still don't know. And then I finally decided, and I was like, okay, I really had to introspect. And it was such a simple question, but in the same breath, it's not, right? It's like,
most people don't think about it.
Yeah, and I wanted to be honest with myself too. I didn't want to just lie and be like, oh no, it's because, it's what makes me happy. It's like, I thought about it.
If you start telling yourself that becomes the reality.
Yeah,
then too,
exactly.
And then you just end up spending all your money on
yeah.
material things.
Yeah, and that wasn't the case. And I said, that's how I would define my success. And that's kind of what I realized. I realized I define my success by money. I want to have a nice house. I want to have nice things because that means I'm successful. And that answer really made me think, because I was like, does that really mean you're successful? Or is helping people, being nice to people, being a good person, is that what successful means, right? So after that, I kind of had to learn how to marry the two. And it's like, yes, success can be defined by money, but that's not the only thing that defines it.
Yeah, I think money can be used as a tool, but when you make it into anything more than that, that's kind of when things go wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree, and it can cause problems, but that's just my opinion on it. It's something I've thought about a lot, and I do a lot of thinking about. And look, I don't have the answer, to be honest. That's me. This is my personal feeling with it, right?
The way I like to think about it is you're talking about kind of like a balance, right?
Yeah.
It's like with the day-to-day, right? If you're feeling tired, okay, maybe you take the day off, right? If you know that you haven't really been working as hard as you have in the past, all right, so maybe a couple days in a row you work really hard, And I think balance comes from day to day, not within each day, And so I think a lot of people tend to think of things in a little bit too short term, right? And then way too long term.
Yeah.
When in reality, I think the best way to think about it is kind of just through each moment, right? You just experience each moment and then you adjust day to day, week to week, And you don't necessarily try to figure it out. You just kind of let things happen, but while still moving in a direction, right? Because I think that's important as well. But things tend to figure themselves out that way.
Yeah, and I think it's so tricky too. There's things I do specifically just for money, right? And then there's things I do specifically just for happiness, right? So caddying, I don't do that for happiness. I enjoy it, but I do it to make money.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not out there caddying and carrying people's bags or clubs for happiness. That's not going to make somebody happy.
Tell you how bad of a caddy you are.
Exactly. So it's that's not going to make me happy. Yeah. I'm making money doing that. Yeah. That's my
It's the money they
goal.
Give you at the end that makes it worth it.
Exactly. But then on the other end of things like this, I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing it because it makes me happy. If anything, I'm losing money, right? So it's I'm doing this because it's making me happy and it's making other people happy. So I guess, similar to what you said before, they can be a little independent of each other. Same thing with money and happiness. They can sometimes intermingle, but I guess sometimes they can also be two completely separate entities.
Yeah, and I think people tend to try and think too one-sided about things, one-dimensional. You're not meant to be one thing or do one thing. I don't know if that you have multiple different friends, right? You have different hobbies and different interests. it's not cut and dry. It's not black and white.
Yeah.
It's not meant to fit a specific mold.
Now, let me ask you this too. What if you were absolutely miserable at your job? Absolutely miserable. But you're making a ton of money. Is that something you're willing to do?
Sure, for a short amount of time. Short amount of time, you make the money and then you give yourself the opportunity, right? So if I was in that situation where I'm making very good money, but I don't enjoy what I'm doing, I'm going to continue to collect that money, right, and go to the job, but I'm going to take the time that I have away from that job, and I'm going to try and find what really, well, you're asking essentially is like fulfills you, right?
Mhm.
I'm going to go out and I'm going to do things with that money to try and fulfill myself. Not spend money and buy myself nice things, but give myself new experiences, try new things, right? Say you want to quit your job and you want to work for yourself, start a business. Okay, so you try that, But the trick is you can't overextend yourself. You have to plan for things, and you kind of have to you have to have a little bit of discipline. You kind of put all of that together in some sense that fits your goals and your aspirations and your purpose. I think that's kind of where you find that balance.
And then what about the flip side of things, right? Say your salary is $40,000 a year, but this is the happiest you've ever been. Now what? And you can't get a raise. The money's not changing.
Is the money technically, are you making enough to get by?
You're making just enough to get by. You're the happiest you've ever been. You absolutely love your job, but the money's just not great.
Maybe pick up another job. But if I'm happy, you can always figure out the other money, If you're making enough to pay your bills, you have a roof over your head and food on your plate, clothes on your back, I think it's a pretty good start.
Yeah, and that was kind of my question. That's kind of what I was trying to get out of you. I just wanted to see, which you'd value more. And just from your answer, it's happiness, right? It's money obviously is important, but the happiness comes first.
There's always going to be jobs somewhere. You may have to adjust and learn new skills, but there's always going to be a job out there, But the opportunities to do something that you really enjoy don't always come around.
Yeah.
So that's just how I would do it. What about you?
For the first one, you're making a lot of money, but you're not happy, I would probably stick it out for a little bit. And then I would, like you said, kind of pursue what makes you happy. For the second one, I don't think I'd have as good of an answer as you on the second one. I think it would be, no, I'd probably go find a new job.
Yeah.
And that's me. And I whether that's right or wrong,
let me finish that answer then. Don't get me wrong. That job is not forever, right? If I'm only making $40,000 a year. Currently in time, the only thing I feel, you can go look for another job, right? Do what fulfills you. Then you do need more money eventually, right? Especially because my goals are family. Can't raise a family on $40,000 a year.
Yeah. It's hard.
Borderline impossible.
Yeah. Especially today.
Yeah. $40,000 isn't going to get you much.
Yeah. And look, like I said, I would find that happiness somewhere else. I don't think I would let that define my happiness. Just to kind of tie everything together, it's hard to decide what you want to do for the rest of your life. Whether you're 15, 20, even if you're 45, right? It's hard to decide what you want to do for the rest of your life. It's more than okay to not have it all figured out. There's time to learn about yourself, what makes you happy, and what makes you do what you want to do, right? It takes a lot of time to figure all these things out. Don't give in to the pressure of getting any sort of job. You want to make sure it's what makes you happy. Same thing with a career or a major, right? Whether it's college, high school, if you're kind of starting to go into these tracks. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. Make sure it's worth your while and it is going to make you happy, because if you're miserable and you're loaded, doesn't matter, right? It's not going to be great, right? If you're happy and you're comfortable, you're bound to have a better life. Maybe not materialistically, but you'll have a better life and a better purpose and more value to yourself. Is there anything else you want to add? No? All right. Thank you guys again. I just want to thank all of you guys who've been listening. We've had a spike in views and downloads, which is really, really awesome. So I appreciate that. I hope you guys see all the work we're putting in. Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for listening, and don't forget to check out Dark Angel Company on Instagram at Dark Angel Co. and online at darkangelco.com. If you're interested in supporting and spreading awareness towards bringing light to a dark topic together, then tune in next time.